My name is Jill Harris. I'm the voice of Suletta Mercury in Mobile Suit Gundam, The Witch from Mercury, and you are listening to The Gundam Watch.
All right, working on the airlock here. Gotta make sure this is secured. It was really weird. I think Poufé was in here because there's dog hair in the control panel. I'm just gonna wedge this open here.
Hey, Dallas, I gotta. Oh no! I just killed Dallas. Oh my God! Journal entry number 935. Today I killed Captain Dallas. I tripped and hit the jettison button and what's that tapping? What?
Branson!
Oh my gosh!
Branson!
He's alive!
Let me in!
I'm gonna have to change my journal entry.
Branson!
Okay, I'm coming.
General Romeo coming in, begin transmission. Should you accept it now, here's your mission. Take your pilot seat and turn on your television. Logging into the Gundam Watch. What is a Gundam? We're gonna answer that question. From back in the classics to the newer expansion. Explore the lore with Dallas Moore and Branson. Welcome to the Gundam Watch. Moyagare, come and join the Gundam Watch. Kashiagare, come and join the Gundam Watch. Yamigaeru, come and join the Gundam Watch. Tomeo, Gandamu, come and join the Gundam Watch. Brought to you by Geek Devotions comes another podcast to keep your feet in motion. Listen in close and see what's all the commotion. Logging into the Gundam Watch. Dallas and Branson bringing their fandom to you with the passion of the veteran instructing the new. We're diving deep, but this ain't B's views and reviews. Welcome to the Gundam Watch.
Hello, Gundam fans, and those who think they might be Gundam fans. Welcome to another episode of the Gundam Watch, where we are not dying from coughs and things. No, seriously, this is the podcast where we take the veteran fan, Dallas Mora, and the newbie, myself, Branson, and we take a look at some of Mobile Suit Gundam's most amazing stories and geek out about them and then find some spiritual significance with them. And joining us here with me on Shiro Base is the legend himself, the veteran of all things Gundam, and slightly icier than he was a few minutes ago, but thawing out nicely, Mr. Dallas Mora.
I'm just glad my normal suit was on. Everything was good to go for my little trip out there in space. That really sucked, by the way, Branson.
Yeah.
Literally, the door opened up. I was sucked right out the gate. So
I know how you can stay warm in those, though.
yeah. Fun fact: I was having to borrow yours, so I could tell. So
it's an ancient technique that Poufé taught me.
Oh Lord! All right. So if you guys are wondering what Branson did last time, I want to encourage you guys check out our special episode where we talked about Mobile Suit Gundam Ducks.
Oh gosh.
So hey, by the way, update on the Mobile Suit Ducks episode. Did some reading. There is a shortened version of the word, and it's GQUX instead of the long string of it. It's still ducks,
okay.
But or quacks. It's still quacks. I call it ducks.
Hey, you know what? I can't keep up with it.
Mobile Suit Gundam G-Quacks. But it's GQUX, and apparently the long string is actually a stylized thing. At least that's what Wikipedia is saying. But I do want to do this. One of our new members to our Discord, Drew. Shout out to Drew.
Yes.
He left a message. We asked him what he thought about it. Funny story. He actually commented. Let me look at the timeline. He commented at 3:35 in the morning. First off, Drew, where are you that you're awake at 3:35 in the morning? Our time, Central Standard Time. Are you okay, brother? But he's like, hey, have you guys seen this? And so Branson and I said, yeah, our episode dropped at 12:30 in the morning. But Drew says this because I asked what he thought of it, of the upcoming series. He goes, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a big Anno fan. So even though he's only co-writing it, that's pretty huge. Also, the director of is the guy who directed FLCL. The show has a high pedigree. Of course, I missed the look of the hand-drawn mecha we were blessed to get with G-Witch, but it is becoming a dying art. I do like the Kara's CG looks great, though. The clips of the trailer remind me of what they pulled off with the Thrice Upon a Time. So I'm confident we're in good hands. And so
Yeah.
I'm
I agree with Drew. I think the hand drawn thing is a dying art, and it's sad. There's a nostalgia to it and a certain beauty to something that's hand drawn. But speaking of hand drawn, we're actually covering a Gundam today that was hand drawn.
We are indeed. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's our new mission, ladies and gentlemen, and we're actually going to finish this. I feel bad. Our Gundam Wing folks are like, "What do you guys got to finish?" We're working on it. All right?
We'll get there. We'll get there.
So, but we are going to finish up the series on the series, which is, ladies and gentlemen, it is called Mobile Suit Gundam, the 8th MS team. Cool. And I'm excited about this. Going into it. Now, Branson, before I told you this is what we're doing, had you heard anything about this?
I think you had mentioned it a couple of times because I have an affinity for the UC-79 timeline, that the stories that take place in that timeline. I guess, whatever your first Gundam is, that's your favorite Gundam. And I think you've mentioned it a couple of times that it's in that vein, in that timeline, but I don't know much about it beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much on it. It takes place in the Gundam timeline. Let me read the IMDb description before we head off into our pods for the viewing. And for those of you guys who are new to the show, we're going to break up the series. So we're going to do the first 2 episodes. It's only 12 episodes, so not a lot, but we wanted to do it this way so we can have a little bit better conversation about some stuff without these episodes being 2 hours long. So
fair point.
The IMDb description is: during the 1-year war, a young lieutenant leads a mobile suit team against a secret Xeon weapon, meeting its pilot who questions the morality of the war. So that's the quick and easy. Boom.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Seems to be, that was a big theme in Requiem of Vengeance. Especially since it was from the point of view of the Xeon soldiers instead of the Federation.
Right.
It took the whole idea of who the good guy is and who the bad guy is and turned it on its head.
Yeah.
So
to a degree, you're going to see that. It's whereas the Requiem did more of a flipping on its head of the Feddies being the bad guy. This is more of a, maybe the Xeons, not maybe the people in Xeon aren't all terrible people. And so that's kind of what we're going to be walking through. Like you said, you've seen some shots, obviously. Hand-drawn animation.
Yeah.
This is from 96. And I'm going to tell you right now, I have a lot of nostalgia for this art. This is for me, this is the sweet spot of anime. A lot of stuff in this time frame it hits special for me, and the art is just très magnifique, which you're going to discover here in a little bit.
So let's see, 96, that would have been like Dragon Ball Z. Was Pokemon popular in that time frame?
Not necessarily. I mean, yes and no. Dragon Ball Z started about that time. Now, Dragon Ball Z started in 1989.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of difference in the art there.
I was just trying to think of what I remember seeing advertised in that time frame. I unfortunately didn't watch a lot of anime back then.
Right.
But I remember seeing advertisements for it.
So, quick list of anime that came out in 1996. I don't think you're going to recognize. Well, no, Rurouni Kenshin.
Oh yeah, Rurouni Kenshin. I didn't watch that until I was in college, but when I got in college, me and my roommate, we watched the mess out of that series.
Yep. So I'm looking through a list of stuff that came out in 96. Detective Conan, which I just told you about, actually.
Yeah.
Dragon Ball GT, which we don't talk about. There was actually another Gundam series called Gundam X that came out. Well, I say that. I won't say Lupin the Third came
Okay.
out, which is great. I'm trying to look at other things. Sonic the Hedgehog, which you might have seen actually. Thinking about it,
Which version?
ba-da-ba-bum.
Was it the super cartoony one?
I mean, they were all cartoony, Branson.
I know, but there's one where he was drawn like he was.
I think it is the
Like-
one that's a little more silly.
Yeah, the one where he looks like he could walk into the Looney Tunes type thing. Because there was another one that had a more serious look to it.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest was going through a Sonic phase there for a while. He was watching a lot of the different iterations of Sonic.
Right.
And
Getcha. So yeah. So pull up on a page. Released January 96, ran through July of 99. And it was 12 episodes long.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's all the basic information I need to give you for right now.
All right.
Let's jump into our pods and give our expectations and watch this. And when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, Branson and I will be having a full-length conversation on the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, buddy.
Let's go.
All right. Getting ready to watch some MSO8. Okay. Expectations for this one. Well, it's the UC79 timeline, so I fully expect there to be a lot of war stuff. I fully expect there to be an idealistic protagonist who is going to have his beliefs severely questioned and tested. I expect the never-ending question of, is Zeon really the bad guy? Or is the Federation really as innocent as we thought? I expect that to be a continual theme. And you know what? At the end of the day, I expect there to be a whole lot of mech fighting. Because that's what's cool. All right, enough talk. To the episode.
All right, back in the viewing pod. I've kind of missed being in here. I'm not gonna lie. All right, let's see. Let's get some tacos. All right, need a little extra salsa and some. I need some cilantro today. Yes. Okay. All right, Mobile Suit, 8th team. What are my expectations? It's been a while since I've watched it, but I remember enjoying it. I remember having fun with it. I remember it being a very grounded show, like very down to earth, very rudimentary type of show. So I'm expecting that to be what this is. Very grounded, very lifelike. As lifelike as you get with giant robots. But that's what I'm expecting. As far as for the first opening episodes, I'm kind of expecting just your general introduction of everybody. We're going to have to figure out who the main characters are. There's going to be underlying plot. From what I remember, there's a love story that takes place a little bit in this. So I'm expecting some of the small seeds of that to take place. All right, well, let's hit go. All right.
That was fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
End of episode, ladies and gentlemen. That was the end. It was fun. You liked it.
Go watch it. It's fun. No. What
All right.
I want to say right off the bat, what I like about this whole property is something I like that we can follow. You've got the main storyline, right? That the
Right.
3 movies we watched are based off of, that follows Armoro and the RX-78 on white base, and that's like the primary story. That's the seller, right?
Right.
But this is now the second series I've started that takes place in that storyline, but isn't directly related to white base.
Right.
And to me, that makes this whole world feel superbly immersive. Like, there's all these little pockets of places where I can go to and see these amazing stories. And they are their own self-contained stories. Kind of like what I fully expected The Mandalorian to be for Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And then there towards the end, they had to include the Jedi because I think you said it before. You can't sell lightsabers if you don't have Jedi.
Yeah.
But that was actually a little bit of a letdown for me because I think the Star Wars universe is giant enough and immersive enough that you could potentially have a story with no Jedi in it at all.
Right.
And some of the series don't really capitalize on that much. So it's neat that with the Gundam, we actually are capitalizing on this. We have stories of people that have nothing to do with Amuro and the RX-78 and White Base, but it's still in that vein. So people who are fans of Gundam but want to hear new types of stories,
Right.
we can do that. And I think that's one of the things that I'm excited about most about this series is that, I mean, yeah, they've got the big events going on that kind of overshadow things, but this is completely new people. It's a completely new story. You know, even though I know where the major narrative goes, I don't know where this minor narrative goes and the different turns it could take.
Yeah. That's definitely an aspect that I love about Gundam as a whole. That's part of the reason why what drew me into it. And it's hard to find series that do that, in my opinion. There are stuff that are like you discover later or kind of like sort of in the same universe, and you're like, oh, I didn't know that. And sometimes it's like loosely like, oh, well, this character was here, and there was a person here playing the same character. You're like, okay. It's like I just saw a video about how Brandon Fraser, he was. Did you ever watch Encino Man?
No, I never saw that one.
It's basically he plays a caveman. He gets buried in the ice age, and then two idiots dig him up because they're trying to build a pool, and they defrost him. And so it's a caveman discovering life. It's a lot of fun. So where the phrase "slurp the juice, man" comes from.
Okay.
So it's one of those ones I watch all the time. But Brandon Fraser plays the same character in multiple shows, different movies, loosely the same character.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, it's the same universe. So you have these things where people are like, they're forcing things to take place. And then you have other stuff where it's like there's like product. Like I just saw a thing like Friends and The Walking Dead are the same universe.
Oh boy. Okay.
Because the fictional cigarette brand Morley Lights appears on Friends and on Walking Dead.
Or the people who made The Walking Dead were Friends fans and said, hey, we need a brand for a cigarette. I know.
Right. Yeah. So it's, again, the drawing these connections, sometimes it's super loose, but this is a series though where it is like it's all in the same universe, but they're different side stories, and I rather enjoy this aspect of it because it's not an accident. It's just like the world is so much bigger than we thought, and so we can tell these stories,
right?
And they get wild. And I would hate to be people working on the UC today going, okay, where's everything at? Because we're
one
going
of those conspiracy theory walls up with all the red tape everywhere. We're gonna figure this out.
Exactly. You know, and the closest thing to this I can think of is the Marvel MCU. Closest thing I can think of where we have that, where we have stories everywhere and they kind of contingently come together. Comic books do it, obviously, but in the film area where we're seeing things played out, you don't see it too often.
Right.
So before we get into the specifics also about the individual episodes, let's see if we can do a couple of general things. What were your thoughts on the art of this?
I like the art. Like we mentioned earlier, hand-drawn art is a dying art form. It especially, and I think we talked about this before, the way they did the lighting, like the way they chose the palettes for the different scenes to really drive home the emotions of the moment. Was really cool. The attention to detail scenes where they're in space and they're in, remains of ships that have been blown up, and there's debris everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Just the little details. For one thing, it's hand drawn art, which means that every detail you see, someone had to draw that.
Yeah.
So the fact that there is that much attention to detail, knowing it is hand drawn, I mean, me being a amateur artist, I pick up on stuff like that. I'm like, somebody had to draw all of those little bitty pieces of debris floating around.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because of the time period, this wasn't okay, copy, paste, spread this around, flip this around, let's make several layers, and there it looks all scattered. No, someone had to say there's a piece here, and 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 oh, that piece doesn't look right there, let's erase it. There's a piece there,
Yeah. And then animate it all.
Yeah, and then make it animated. I don't know if this is spoilery or not, but when they first get to the jungle and they're in that tent, to let everyone see behind the curtain a little bit, when Dallas and I watched this episode, we actually watched it together at his house, and there's a scene where the guy's talking and he walks over to get a cup of water, and there is a fly on a fruit bowl, and the fly shakes its wings and then flies off. And when I first watched it, I thought it was a bug on Dallas's screen because it was animated so well.
My house is clean, people.
Well, no, I asked him, I said, pause this and rewind that back, please. And so he did. He backed it up about like 10 seconds, and I watched it again, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was an animated fly. I thought it was just a gigantic fly. But they, and where he had paused it, you could actually see the frames where the wings were flapping. So these people are drawing a guy walking over to a water cooler to get water, and they took the time to animate a fly on a fruit bowl, shaking its wings and flying off just to give it that attention to detail.
Yeah.
And as an artist, I look at that, and on the one hand, I'm thinking, why would you waste time on that? But it makes it so realistic.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in a real jungle setting, you would expect to see a fly buzzing around.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I love the art.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I enjoy this. I mentioned to you before we recorded. I watched this as a teenager, back when it was Toonami was playing it, and the art is what caught me. Was that there? And this is an aspect about '90s anime, that there is a grittiness to things. And the ones that they're putting, you can tell when they put a lot of care and stuff. There's like a level thing where things just kind of go up. It's like, so one of the series I grew up watching was Tenchi Muyo, but then what introduced me to Tenchi Muyo was the movie Tenchi Muyo, and the art in that is this next level thing, because there's a lot of money that goes into it. Obviously, this is an OVA. It's 12 episodes. That's it. So they have the ability to put the attention into it, and it was immaculate. Like there's moments where, especially when there's a combination of the audio in the background, the scoring, and then not just the music, but the Foley work of the sound effects. It's like you're in the jungle with these people for a moment, and it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and the people who worked on this, I mean, hats off to these guys, because this was a work of art. And there are moments, we talked about this, where I'm like, I want a still frame of this as a backdrop somewhere.
Yeah.
Because it was just so beautiful.
Of the ground unit walking back when what was his name? Shiro. Gosh, you think I know that name. When Shiro's like asleep in the cockpit and his Gundam's walking back, and you've got the setting sun behind him.
Oh my gosh.
And that, I mean, if someone were to get the celluloid of that frame and frame it and sell it, you could sell that as artwork.
Oh yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into it. Let's talk about what these episodes were, what took place here. We'll start with episode 1, and we'll kind of just work our way through it together. So episode 1 is called, again, pardon my Japanese, Futari Dake no Sensu, which means war for two. And IMDb describes it as in the year 0079, Shiro Amada goes to a federal supply ship with other members that is headed towards the Earth, and that's it. That's all they give you. I'm a bit frustrated because for like behind the curtain, there was a site that I was looking at for our previous episodes where it broke down details, what happened in the episode in a really great like 1 or 2 sentences, and I cannot find that site, so I apologize. But that's all IMDb is giving me. So let's break it down the front end for you guys. Let's walk into it. Basically, what happens is Shiro, you meet him, and he's on this tanker with a whole bunch of other guys, and they look out, they hear an explosion, they see a pilot, somebody fighting in a gym, which is just which is the mass-produced Gundam mobile suit, fighting a Zaku. And to me, it looked like a base level Zaku. I wasn't sure. But apparently there was something experimental about it. We find out later. And Shiro jumps out because he realizes this guy's almost dead. Like he's missing a leg. It's not good. And he gets out there in a freaking ball, which messes with my head. My dude's just like, let's go in a ball.
This is the Gundam equivalent of charging hell with a water pistol.
My dude said Leroy Jenkins when he went out there, okay? Now, let me explain the ball for you guys. The correct term is the RB-79 ball, okay? Now, according to Gundam Fandom, it said Gundam.fandom.com says the Federation refitted about 12,000 of the civilian model worker space pods and created basically this thing. The Federation reinforced it with heavier armor, mounted a 180 millimeter low recoil cannon on top of the ball pod. Also added veneer thrusters mounted all along the body. So basically took what was supposed to be a mobile, like, hey, we're constructing stuff in space into a little mini cannon gun type of thing. So Shiro rolls out there and he fights off the Zaku. He shoots off a hook, wraps around, and he's spinning around. And the guy he's trying to save is like, "What are you doing? Get out of here!" And he's like, "No, you get out. You're about to die." He's like, "You too, bye bye." And so he heads off.
It's like, okay.
Shiro.
What I found interesting about that fight scene though is that the ball, when he's in the ball, when he approaches it, like on the way there, he grabs a piece of shrapnel.
Yeah.
Like a section of the wall of the ship and uses it as a shield. It's like the ingenuity to think in terms of that. Like he doesn't even depend on the armor of his own vessel. He's like, I've got all this scrap floating around. I might as well put it to good use.
Right.
And it really drives home the ingenuity and the quick thinking of Shiro, that he's severely outgunned and is able to, and I know they say, plot armor's a thing, but the way they choreographed, is that the right word? The way they drew or designed his fight with the Zaku, it was improbable, but believable.
It made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if he's someone who's thinking 3 steps ahead like that. He's, if you know how to use the tool in your hands correctly, then that's better than having a giant tool that you don't know what to do with.
Exactly.
And he drove that home.
He did. That's one of the things you brought up. Something that makes me that I found that I've loved about this first episode and some of the stuff in the second episode later is that there's a level of practicality that went into the storytelling. Like when they're doing this, they were thinking out, okay, this is a practical way of doing things. This is a practical way of handling this situation. Because sometimes when you watch these shows, it's just super like it is the plot armor to the nth degree. It is 100% plot armor. But this is like, no, let's ground this. And you guys are gonna hear me say this a lot. There's a grounding that takes place in this series. It made sense for him to go, okay, I need to sneak up on them. Let me grab this thing, kind of hide behind gently, float in there. Let me tie this up and do these certain things. And moving forward in this episode, you'll see a couple of practical things. It just made sense. And again, I love my sci-fi. And again, we're talking about a series where people are fighting with giant robots. But there's something just practical about it.
Right. And I think that helps explain, because when I was watching it, I thought the way that Shiro and Aelin, what's her name?
Ana. Ayan?
Aina.
I apologize. We'll figure this out later and we'll fix it for you guys.
The lady he meets, they're on opposite sides of the war, but they seem to make friends like really quickly. Like they go from she's shooting at him to they're trying to help each other escape, but both of them believe themselves to be marooned on this giant derelict ship that's falling apart around them.
Right.
And instantly their attitude is survival. How are we going to live through this?
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of get over themselves really quickly.
Yeah. Now,
like really quickly, they're like, okay, the war doesn't matter anymore. We're just going to try to help each other stay
when they
alive.
were first got on the derelict ship, she was not trusting him. She was expecting him to be somebody who was just going to shoot at her and kill her. She wasn't expecting the kindness. Like he patched up her normal suit, took care of her. Like she was not expecting any of that whatsoever.
Right. And once he did that, she seemed kind of to get on board really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, at the time I was watching, I was like, wow, okay, we went from shooting each other to being best friends really quick. But if you think about it, you're floating out in space. You don't think any of your friends on either side know where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think at one point Shiro's like, I don't care who shows up to get us. Even if I go as a prisoner, at least I'll be alive.
Right.
You know.
I mean, there speaks something about that, like, there's this level of like when you are in a situation like that, when you find common ground, how things can change. And again, this is why it's so important for us as individuals. This isn't our spiritual speculation, but why it's so important for you to try to find common ground with people, even that you disagree with, because at least then you can accomplish stuff that needs to be accomplished. You know, I think back to the great Christmas story from World War. Was it World War II? So either World War II or World War One, where there was a huge fight taking place. I think it was between the Brits and somebody else. And those who know will correct me later. But it's Christmas, and when it became Christmas Day, there was this moment where they were like, "Look, white flag, can we be chill?" And they spent Christmas Day together as soldiers. Wow. They came out of the trenches, and they spent Christmas Day across the lines. Christmas Day ended, and they went back to the trenches. But they found a commonality, something to bring everybody together for a moment, and there was peace. And there really is a legitimate aspect of it. Like when you find common ground, we can have peace to handle things. When we remove the selfishness, things can happen. And that's what takes place in the series throughout, actually, Branson. You're going to find is like you find a level of commonality, and that's where things start to get gray in the war era.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's our maintenance report for the show. And
oh my gosh, no. But all right, so they're on the ship. That whole thing about escaping the ship and surviving, that was another level of the practicality of like we need to, because I will say this, I forgot when it was. We were watching one of the other animes, and I was like, space really is big, guys. Like it's
right.
It's massive. Like I know it's big. I know it, but like to think about the vastness of it, like it's easy to lose track and not to know where things are. And they had to do something to be seen in the vastness of space. So they rigged up a situation to make that whole thing explode so that it would get the attention of people. And I genuinely love just the ingenuity of making that happen.
That was another example of the artwork being super detailed, because I think it was Shiro opens up a door and a whole bunch of debris flies out.
Yeah.
And one of the things that flies out is a photograph.
Yeah.
And the artist took the time to draw an image on the photograph. Like you see, it's obviously a picture of someone. It's not just a blank piece of paper. It's
Right.
someone drew a picture on there to show that it was a photograph flying out of the debris field. And
Yep.
just the attention to detail that's required to think of that, to think, okay, one of the debris things is a photograph. We need to see what it's a photograph of. And I mean, it was cool. It was actually one of my favorite scenes of the whole episode, was that whole exchange, because it was so detailed. I mean,
Yeah.
you saw pieces of debris floating all over everywhere. It felt massive. It felt huge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they went floating off, I mean, it was really, really well done.
Yeah. Definitely. In that same scene, it was after that scene when they finished. They're about to make the plans, or they're about to execute the plan to blow everything up. There's this moment where they're standing at the edge of like a big opening inside of the ship, and they're looking at the debris field. But you're also seeing the beauty of the vastness of space. But there's this like beautiful, like very much minor key music playing in the background that brings the whole scene together. And again, it's the use of music is going to be very interesting throughout the entirety of the series. And it you're in this vastness, but it brings it as if it's just the two of them. You're in this closed space, in the vastness of space, with these two people who are just trying to survive. And the music does a great job of making you feel the moment.
Yeah.
So, trying to think what else we can talk about. Talk about this real quick. In the background of them trying to survive this derelict ship, there is a man named Terry, who is the man that that Shiro saves, and he's called Sanders the Reaper because something happens for whatever reason. We don't find out this in this episode, but apparently everyone dies when it's changed,
except him,
except for him.
Yeah,
and he's a great pilot, but people die, and he is blown away by Shiro's gall to get out there and save him. So he's like, I have to get out there. I need to save. And it's one part because he is appreciative of the young man, but also it's one part who was like, I don't want to lose any more people.
Right.
And like he was like, you will get your butt going. They're all like, he's dead. Don't worry about it. He's like, no, get stuff together. I'm going out now.
Right. I think at one point he actually like throws a kid halfway across the ship, like just yeets him. Was like, I'm done with you. Goodbye.
He says the words, "I'll keep you to seal your hatch." I love that line. That he tells this kid, the kid's yapping, and he tosses him, and he goes, "That'll teach you to seal your hatch." That was the greatest way to say, "Shut up,
shut up." That's Gundam for shut up.
Seal your hatch. Oh my gosh. But that whole thing with him, what I loved about it is that started to create the camaraderie that will come later. Because we get to the end of that episode, and Terry is talking to another young man named Michael, who's just like, he's this nerdy little dude who is annoying. He's annoyed with Shiro. Feels like he's lazy, and he's like, how could he be our leader? This is terrible. And he reveals to Terry that this is our leader, and he's like, oh, and so they salute him. And I think that was a change for Terry, because Terry's expecting Terry to be this hardened warrior, and this is the man that we should be looking to. But this hardened warrior is looking to this young man, Shiro. And again, not a child warrior, but just probably early 20s, late teens.
Yeah.
And he's saluting him, giving him almost going, this is strength. This is what a leader should look like.
Right.
Not necessarily me. And I love that whole moment.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really cool. That's where we get I should rewrite my journal. He's like writing Shiro's obituary, and he's like, he's alive. Well, I need to rewrite that, don't I? But yeah, because it's neat, because when you first get introduced to Shiro, he very much comes across as the idealistic, oh boy, we're gonna get to go and do a lot of amazing cool stuff. And then you find out he's not the young whippersnapper. He's the commander.
Right.
He's the big cheese or whatever.
Right.
And that makes his desire to jump into a ball and go save the guy all the more powerful, because it isn't an insubordinate whelp who's trying to make a name for himself.
Right.
It is a leader who says, no, we're not leaving a single person behind.
Right. Yeah. So good. So powerful too. All right. Anything else on episode 1 before we jump into episode 2?
Uh,
I think that's all my notes.
yeah. I think everything else I want to talk about is in the next episode. So,
Right.
yeah.
All right. Cool beans. Well, let's talk about episode 2, which is called, opening up my notes over here. Again, part of my Japanese. Mitsurin no Gundamu, which means Gundams in the jungle. And according to the very, very terrible explanation on IMDb, now that they're back on Earth, Shiro, Michael, and Sanders are greeted by 2 members of the 08 Mobile Suit team and get assigned their positions by Commander Kojima. And that's all we get for that description.
Forgive me for this. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the Gundam sleeps tonight. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the Gundam sleeps tonight. Oh! Okay,
Yep.
I'm back. Sorry.
That's all good. I'm glad you're back with us here, Branson. All right, so let's talk about this. They land. So the quick and easy of it is they land on Earth, and Shiro and them are this crew has never been on Earth before for the most part, and so they're adjusting to Earth life, figuring things out, and
Right.
you get the impression that this really is Shiro's first big assignment of leadership.
Yeah.
Just in the way he talks to people, the way he deals with certain situations that come up that we'll get into. This is the episode where Branson talked about the fly,
Yeah.
like the details of the fly.
That whole scene though was neat, because they're in the tent, and it has very, very strong Vietnam vibes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it reminded me a lot of Vietnam War movies that I had seen.
Mm-hmm.
But they're in the tent with their lead officer or whatever, and the 08 team, they're all standing there at attention, and Shiro is in his full dress uniform. I mean, like, he is dressed to the nines. And the guy he's talking to is like in a t-shirt or a polo shirt with his button unbuttoned. He's got a fan blowing on him. He's just sitting there sweating, patting his head with a rag. But the things that they do to show you, like the rule they give with writing stories is show, don't tell.
Right.
Show me that it's hot. Don't tell me that it's hot. They do that so perfectly, because at no point does anyone say, this is hot. It is hot here. What they do is you have the guy in the tent who sarcastically says, don't you just love it to be here on Earth and away from the space colonies where they have air conditioning? Man, I hate air conditioning. And while he's talking to them, he gets up and goes and gets a cup of water and drinks it. And while he's drinking it, they zero in on him gulping the water down. And you see Shiro just staring at him. And he's like, I think he actually whimpers a little bit.
Yeah.
But he's standing at attention. Sweat is pouring off of his face. But at no point does the dialogue say, wow, it is hot in this jungle.
Right.
Like, and what that did was it expertly communicated the feel of the place.
Right.
Like, I got the impression of how it felt.
Not only that, though, it also did a great job of again, this is a very practical thing of Shiro and his crew are dying. They were complaining about the air a little bit because they're not used to being on Earth. They're away from the clean temperate controls.
Yeah.
The people on Earth, they're fine. They're hot. They recognize it's hot. They've adjusted for it. That they've taken off their button ups and everything like that. They're tied around their waist. But they're not complaining about it because they have adjusted to it. Shiro
Yeah.
and them have not at all, and they're dying. And that's a very practical thing. When you go from a cooler temperature to a hot temperature, it's kind of shocking. I'll never forget John Haryu. The first time he came to visit us here in Shreveport, I think it might have been November timeframe. Now I'm thinking about it. I can't remember when exactly it was. No, it was September. It was September timeframe. So it
Yeah.
wasn't hot necessarily. But he gets out and
Not
he
as
goes,
hot as it could be.
yeah. He comes out of the airport and he's standing there and he goes, "Why am I sweating already?" He goes, "Why is it wet? Why is it wet?" I'm sitting
Welcome
going,
to Louisiana, where you
Like, what are you
drink the
talking about?
air, you don't breathe it.
right? It's just every time you turn around, you got to check your wallet because it's so muggy outside. And so it's just one of those things. But he was like, he's dying because it's so hot. And Celeste and I were like, it's a Monday. Like, we don't know what you're talking about. It's just, this is normal weather. Like, it's actually quite cool. And to take this a step further to the extremes, I have a dear friend of mine. Her name is Lizzie, and she doesn't listen to the podcast, but shout out to Lizzie. Amazing young lady. She went to the Philippines for 2 years to serve at an orphanage, and did some amazing stuff. Worked with some people who, man, they needed help, and she saw and helped people who were in some dangerous situations. But for those 2 years she was there, she lived in the Philippines as a Filipina, an American, but Filipina. So she got used to life there. She came home stateside. I'll never forget it, man. It was like summertime, and it was right before summertime. So it was warm. It was like, 90, 95 degrees. We're not dying at all. We're like, okay, cool. Shorts and t-shirt. She had to pull out a jacket because she was cold.
Oh my gosh.
Because she got so used to how hot it was in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And I can contest. I went to the Philippines to see her and to do some documentary filming of some stuff. And I was like, good golly, it's toasty. Now I wasn't dying just yet, but I mean, it was like, woo,
Yeah.
it's warm here.
Uh-huh.
And again, I'd say all that. That's a long story to come back to this point. That was a very practical thing they put in the show of people who aren't used to the heat, to the humidity. They're struggling. Everyone else is just used to it, like, let's move. Come on.
Yeah.
We got stuff to do. And to relate this over to the military side of things, I would never forget. Those of you who don't know, my one of my mentors was a Marine, and he was telling me about how they've changed when he first when he was stationed in Hawaii. They just changed rules. Just changed rules, Branson, in Hawaii.
All right.
This is like 99 time frame, right? Well, maybe 90. Well, actually, this might have been closer to 96 now I'm thinking about when he went there. Anyways, where when you first come to Hawaii, you're not allowed to do PT for 2 weeks
Oh, really?
because you need to get used to the humidity.
Oh.
And he's looking at them like, this feels like home. They're like, nope, doesn't matter. Nobody can do PT for 2 weeks because we had a guy who passed out and almost died.
Oh, wow.
And so they changed the rules on the base of Hawaii because they realized people were coming from other places and they couldn't handle.
Yeah.
And they had to have time to adjust. Used to, you didn't do that. You just jumped in and they're like, suck it up, move.
Yeah.
And that's really what was happening here in this situation. This was very, like, the accuracy of this from what I'm seeing from a military type of view. And I'm not telling you it's 100% accurate. I mean, it made sense.
Yeah.
Like, this was so grounded.
Yeah.
All the way through.
I think about when they went on their first maneuver and everyone's wearing, like, regular fatigues or whatever. And Shiro is in his suit, like the normal suit. I mean, like, he's like, I am going to pilot a Gundam. I've got my helmet. I've got my suit on. I'm ready to go. And everyone else is in like a t-shirt, cargo pants.
Dude's got a bandana wrapped around his head.
Right. He's like, no, I am piloting my Gundam. And I'm like, okay. And he wasn't in his cockpit for very long at all. And you actually start to see sweat pouring down his face.
Yeah.
And it's not from the threat of the fight. That's because he's in long sleeve, sealed up stuff in the middle of this humid jungle. And that was really really cool. But I mean,
Yeah.
again, just the attention to those kinds of details of asking yourself, okay, you've got a guy who's used to living in a room where the temperature is always 72 degrees, period.
Mm-hmm.
24/7, 365 days a year, doesn't matter what's going on, it is 72 degrees. And now he's in a situation where it's hot, it's muggy, and there's not a system he can go kick and adjust to make it more comfortable. And that changes the way he thinks about what he wears,
Mm-hmm.
about the levels to which he exerts himself.
Right.
Matter of fact, there was one moment where he's in his mobile suit and he tries to shoot a Zaku suit and misses terribly.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you making the comments like, man, he missed. But then the thought occurred to me, it might be that he has to adjust for the fact that there's gravity
Oh yeah.
on Earth. Because if he's used to shooting in space where there's zero gravity, gravity's not a factor.
Yeah.
You know,
It's true.
you don't even need all that much force for your bullet to go in the right direction. You just go and bang and it goes.
Mm-hmm.
But now when he pulls the trigger, once that bullet leaves the barrel, it immediately starts a downward path.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, maybe the reason that he wasn't that good of a shot is because now he has to deal with gravity.
I don't know. But that's one of those things that it makes sense for them to pull in. And
Mhm.
so we've talked a lot about this already, this topic, just the grounding of it and just the reality of it. Let's get a little bit more into the story that takes place here. So they go on this first maneuver. At the same time, there's a side story where you find again Anya,
Mhm.
Anna, I don't know, Anastasia. She's got a little bat with her. She's a Russian princess. No, but but where she lands wherever the Xeon people are hidden, and
Mhm.
we know that they're in the same area. We know that
Yeah.
there's some sort of secret plan taking place. That's actually part of what's taking place is Xeon is developing some sort of secret mobile suit, and somehow she's part of this scientific team figuring things out. And her brother is somebody important, and it seems like he has some sort of medical condition where he has to take medication at a certain time.
Mhm.
And we get a feel for this because um, we didn't talk about this, but in the first episode, she gives Shiro her personal watch because they had to time out some stuff, and
Right.
she forgot to take it back. Well, it's set to go off every day at the same time.
Mhm.
And again, this is part of that humanizing of people. She's a young lady who's genuinely concerned about her brother's health. And something with this project is gonna help in some fashion.
Mhm.
So my question for you, Branson, again, you've watched a lot of Gundam,
Uh-huh.
but you haven't really had a lot of this humanization of the quote unquote enemy necessarily.
Right.
We were about to get a little bit of that into Gundam Wing, but before we left off. But how is this so far? Seeing this just within 08 team, not a lot,
Mhm.
but how's this looking for you?
Well, I have the advantage of seeing the original storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So I know right off the bat that even within Xeon, there are people that we really like. Like, what's his name? Raul? The guy that
Mm-hmm.
piloted the
Rumbarao.
goof. Yeah. I loved him.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the wrong side of the battle, but the way he handled his fight with Amuro, the way he handled Amuro when he knew who he was and just let him sit there for a while in
Mm-hmm.
the bar, the cantina where they had met. Uh, that was the kind of guy I was like, man, you know, I hate that he's with Xeon because I really like him as a character and as a person.
Right.
And then again, watching Requiem for Vengeance, where the entire story is from the Xeon uh, point of view. So I kind of already walked in with this idea of just because they're piloting a Zaku suit, that doesn't make them evil.
Right.
And just because they're in a gym or a Gundam or they're wearing a Federation uniform, that doesn't mean they're a good guy. And then, like I said, the first episode kind of established right off the bat. There's, I don't know if it's a Romeo and Juliet situation because I don't know that Shiro and Anya are going to be a love interest, but you have that kind of vibe of we're friends, we're helping each other, we care about each other, we're on opposite ends of the war, so we're going to go our separate ways, but we're going to deliberately do things to help the other out so that people don't get taken to prison or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think in that regard, I kind of walked in expecting that. It didn't catch me. It was more something when I saw it. It was more of a recognition of, okay, this is where they're going to go with that. Like
Right.
I expected to see it. I think
Right.
I even mentioned that in my expectations was that I expected there to be a question of, is Xeon really the bad guy?
Mhm.
So I mean, I'm not displeased by it, but I kind of
Mhm.
expected it.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and they seem to jump into that really quickly, whereas with the original movies, it took them a while
Mhm.
to suggest that Xeon wasn't as dark as they claimed to be.
Right.
With this one, within the first few minutes of the first episode, they go right into it.
Yeah,
So it'll be interesting
definitely.
to see how that plays out.
Right. Cool. All right. So while that's taking place, and again, we mentioned several times they go on their first maneuver. We also get a better feel for Shiro, and we get a sneak peek at kind of his growth track as an individual.
Mhm.
So first off, like we talked about, he's buttoned up. He's all like, "All right, this is how we're gonna do it." And he has this great line saying, he says, "I don't want heroics. I want teamwork."
Right.
And he's very much, nobody's gonna get left behind. Nobody's dead. Everyone comes back. Period.
Mhm.
And they go on this maneuver, and he gets cocky.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like there's like this double speak, like, I want teamwork, but I'm going solo. Like he's got to prove himself to everybody.
Right. Well, I think part of that is because he's so young and so many of his team are older than him.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the girl's name that's like his second in command?
Karen.
Karen. Her name's Karen. That's funny. Okay. Karen, her attitude is kind of all right, let's take bets. How long is this one going to last? Will he
Right.
even make it through one maneuver before he's dead?
Yeah.
And then I dare say the reason he gets left behind, yeah, he gets kind of cocky and sticks his neck out. But Karen is, how you really worry about those doctors where you go in with something and they're quick to say, well, you need surgery. No, come on, let get my scalpel. You need surgery.
Right.
That's kind of how she was. Like she was really quick to say, "Oh, sorry, guess we lost somebody. Let's go, guys. Back."
Right. Well, you almost get, and again, I haven't watched the series in years, guys, so I don't have spoilers for Branson. I have vague memories of certain things, but you do get the feel like she's lost commanders before, and
Mm.
and I've said this before on different series. The Federation higher ups often do not seem to care about people. You see
Mhm.
this play out really a lot in Gundam Zeta, which is the official sequel series to Gundam. And so she's a grunt, if you will, and she's kind of become disenfranchised with the leadership of the Federation.
Mhm. And that makes
So,
sense. Because so now maybe it's a defense mechanism. If I don't get attached to you, then I don't have to mourn you when you die.
yeah.
Uh, but I mean, I kind of get the impression that if she'd have been less eager to just cut and run, that
Hmm.
maybe Shiro wouldn't have been left behind. But it also speaks to Shiro's fortitude that he comes back.
Yeah.
He's like, and you see him grow. Like when he's off by himself and he realizes he survived, the first thing he does is take that dadgum suit off. Like, he's like, okay, I'm going to die if I leave this on. So we'll just
Right.
take this off. But
Right.
but what's cool is you see him learning. You see him
Mhm.
saying, okay, I need to adapt to this.
Right.
Clearly, what I thought was important is not important here. So let me
Mhm.
change. Let me adapt.
Right.
And I think that's going to do well for him because he's learned,
Yeah.
so that when he does make it back, I think, I haven't seen the next episode yet, but when they go on the next maneuver, I expect that he's going to have a better handle on how to do things. you
Yeah,
know.
definitely.
And
I'll
I'm
put this out
also
there.
oh, go
Sorry.
ahead.
No, go for it.
I'm also eager to see Sanders. Like, I felt really bad for him in the first episode because he kept, and the second one, because people keep making fun of him. Sanders the Reaper, and oh, he's bad luck. So I'm eager to see him in his character development, see him get attached to this team
Mm,
and get to a place to where he can trust himself to get close to people.
yeah.
Because I imagine if you're someone who expects that everyone close to me just dies, then he's going to
Mhm.
start out being very standoffish and very, I don't want to get too close to anybody.
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued by his character arc very
I can
much.
see that. I want to put this out there about Karen real quick. And one of the other characters, I can't remember his name, was the guy with the bandana. Um, he was talking with Michael. Michael's like, "Why aren't we going out there and find him?" And Karen understands this, but the other guy voiced it, which is, think about it. If we go find him and he's still alive, we've ruined his career. We've embarrassed him as our commander. And that's black mark on him and us.
Yeah.
If he's MIA, if he's just dead, that's one thing. But if we do this, we lose he loses respect in what he's doing.
Mm.
And so we have to allow him to come back. And there was a level of like relief from her. She's like, "Oh, he made it." And there was a genuine surprise, but it was like, okay, this is somebody we can follow. He survived this. He came back with his integrity and his honor intact.
Yeah.
And earned
Which
the
for a
respect of
Japanese
people.
show, for a Japanese show, the concept of honor,
Mhm.
of dying a good death versus being alive when you shouldn't be
Right.
would be something that they would fixate on.
Exactly. But I mean, it really did. I mean, it was a moment that, I mean, again, yes, there's no joke. She is a hardened woman. She does not play games. You will do what she says when she says to do it. But there's a level of grace that she has also. Like, there's a level of like,
Yeah.
it's not the hardened, forget you, but it's almost, hey, do this because I know it's best for you type of situation at the same time.
Right.
So, all right. Anything else you want to talk about this episode?
I don't think so. I think we hit everything. I'm eager to watch the next one. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm hooked in it. This is going to be fun. I think it's going to be neat because it seems to be centered around a central location instead of, whereas the original Gundam was, because they were in a traveling space base, they were all over the place all the time.
Right.
This is going to be more grounded. But I'm excited for it. I enjoy being able to be in a familiar timeline, but to be able to read and learn about new stories that could go anywhere.
Right.
I mean, so this will be fun.
Cool. I did want to ask you one question. What did you think of the Gundam that they were using? This is called the RX-79 Gundam ground type. And so it's obviously based off the RX-78, which Amro is doing. And that tells you where we are in the war. This is the latter half of the war where they've had time to go, okay, this is good. Let's make it better. I'm looking at the Gundam info. It says the ground type was one of the early prototypes for the Earth Federation mobile suit mass production, produced in limited numbers before the recovery of the RX-78-2's combat data. So it doesn't have the combat data that Amro has. As the name suggests, it is designed solely for ground combat and all space use equipment, as well as the core block system. And so, trying to see if there's anything else specific. It was constructed using surplus parts from the RX-78, and the quality of the parts varies. So some of them aren't the greatest, and there is a limiter on the whole thing. Also,
Well,
it says compared to the RX-78, the 79 featured main design changes. Head-mounted Vulcans were omitted in favor of the ability to mount various optional equipment. So it became one of those things where it's like, You remember the Motorola phone where you could attach different things to it for different features?
Uh-huh.
Basically, that's what the 79 was. It was
Yeah,
like, all
it's a
right,
modular design.
exactly.
Which makes sense if it's a ground type.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got several suits who are designed to be on Earth and be in different situations, it makes sense to have things that you could kind of interchange depending on the situation you're going into.
Mm-hmm.
It also makes it super easy to sell toys because you've got multiple different versions of the same suit.
You're not wrong.
But again, going back to what you said about the grounding thing, you've got a mobile suit who is specifically designed to work in regular Earth gravity, regular
Mhm.
Earth climate conditions. It's not, you're not designed to fly through space. Like instead of
Mhm.
having a jetpack on the back, it's got a utility pack where
Right.
they can keep extra ammo or something like that.
Well, and
So I
that's
think
even optional. Again, that was that was a 79, and they added the feature for that pack.
Oh, nice.
So, because if you go back and watch it, some of them didn't have that big pack on it. Only some of them did.
So yeah, so I mean, just the ingenuity involved
Mm-hmm.
of like you said, okay, clearly the RX-78 works for what we need it to work for. Let's see how we can tweak the design for specific situations.
Yeah.
Like having a head Vulcan on Earth gravity may not actually be useful because depending on what kind of armament you've got, if stuff's exploding in your face, that's not helpful. Whereas if you're in 0G, shooting something, it goes until it hits something,
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on Earth gravity, you might not have a lot of range. So having something in your head shoot and explode may not be a benefit,
Yeah. So again, I think it's a cool design. And what I love is let's take, for example, let's say that let's say that you and I are part of a squad and we have a mission that we need to take. Well, you know, I need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that. We could, as a squad, we could customize our stuff to be
Mhm.
effective for certain things.
Right.
So, in theory, like, you could customize yours up to be like a tank type of situation where you're coming in with
Mhm.
two, Gatling guns, stuff like that. Whereas my particular Gundam steps back, with more long range sniper situation to clear
Mhm.
grounds for you.
Right.
It makes sense. Again, this is the grounding aspect for you guys. It makes sense to create something modular for a custom team to do things.
Mhm. And then depending on what you expect that, like if you've got a team that's more stealth oriented, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to carry small armament, but a lot of recon information,
Right.
signal trackers, long distance reconnaissance, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So again, it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So, final question before we go on to the maintenance reports. You kind of answered it, but like if this was like young Branson and you're flipping the TV and you've watched these first 2 episodes, would this make you go, "Man, I want to watch more Gundam. I want to check more of
Yes.
this out."
Yes. I think I have a deeper appreciation for it having already been exposed to the series, so I know what's going on in the background. But even if I didn't,
Mhm.
just the animation, the attention to detail, the storytelling, that alone, I think would catch my attention. I
Word.
appreciate that I have a deeper understanding of the story, so I
Mhm.
can appreciate some of the things they do. But I mean, even devoid of that, if just on watching the episode alone, I think I would be interested.
Word. All right, guys. Well, that's our thoughts on it. We want to hear from you. Did you guys like the first 2 episodes of 08 Team? Let us know. Reach out to us. Hit up our Discord. Hit us up on our social medias. Look for the Gundam Watch. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're jumping into our maintenance reports.
Cruise maintenance reports now loading in 3, 2, 1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the maintenance report portion of the Gundam Watch. This is the portion where we take what we've watched and we find some redemptive factor of it to point you to hope, point you to Jesus, to point you to life. And this is a theme throughout all of the the Geek Devotions Podcast Network is that, look, we're geeks, we're nerds. We want you to know you're loved and you're cared for. And for us, that comes from a grounding in the Word of God and Scriptures and in Jesus Christ. And so that's what we're doing. Branson, you got a maintenance report for us today?
I do indeed. All right, so we mentioned how Shiro is a very, very young man.
Mhm.
And because of his age, some people discredit him.
Mhm.
They have a hard time believing he's the commander. Karen thinks he's not going to make it very far before he just dies because he's so young and so green, you know. And so there are a lot of people who look at Shiro and think, oh my gosh, this little, wet nosed pup is going to come in to war and what that's going to be. And he surprises them all by his tenacity.
Mm.
He refuses to let Sanders die. He jumps in a ill-equipped machine and is able to save him. He goes out on his own and is able to come back from being left behind. And he surprises everyone. And that reminded me of a verse in First Timothy chapter 4, verse 12 says, "Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech and conduct and love and faith and purity." Paul is writing to Timothy, and Timothy was a pastor of a church, but he was super young. I want to say he was in his teens, wasn't he? Like
I
16,
think
17?
some commentaries say that early teen or mid teens to at oldest late 20s or early 20s rather.
Yeah. Well, either way, young enough that there were people in the church who were older who would say, "Listen here, little boy, you don't get to tell me what I need to do or how I need to follow my faith. You don't even know what it's like. I've lived 2 of your lifetimes and you don't know anything." And Paul is trying to encourage him, is saying, look, don't let your youth become an issue. You
Yeah.
know the truth. You know what you've been taught. You have a calling by God. You have a position. Work it out. And I see that in Shiro too. He was young and he had a lot of people who seriously questioned his ability to lead in such a hostile environment, an environment that he wasn't used to. But he took his calling seriously. He took his commands seriously and he acted accordingly and was successful for it. And I think that's something that we need to understand is that when God calls a person and qualifies them, it's not us to say, well, but they're too young or
Mm.
even they're too old. I was listening to, I think it was Scott actually, who was talking about how the advantage of the young and the old is that the older people, they have wisdom. They've lived a lot of life
Right.
and they understand how things work. So young people would do well to listen to their wisdom and learn from it. But what the young people have that the older people don't have is enthusiasm and zeal. They have
Mhm.
all this energy and they're ready to go, you know, attack a Zaku suit in the ball. They're just at that level. And while they may not have the wisdom to help guide it, there's still that fire, that burning. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes the older generation can be a wet blanket on that fire,
Mm.
because they're so comfortable and they're so
Yeah.
settled in their ways of thinking and, oh, I have wisdom. When you have a person of a younger generation who is eager and ready to get up and go and charge and do these amazing things, the older generation's like, slow down, little fella. Let's cool your jets a little bit.
Right.
And now, obviously, that's not a blanket statement. There are times where wisdom needs to rule over and you need to cool it a little bit. But there is a time where action is needed. There is a time where youthful energy and youthful exuberance is necessary and needed to
Right.
achieve a goal. And especially when the Lord puts his calling on a young person's life and you see that zeal and you see that excitement, for us who are older, shame on us for trying to quiet that. Shame on us for trying
Man.
to tell that young person, well, we know better. You know, rather we should encourage that. Yes, use our wisdom to help kind of point them in the right direction. But if they're on fire for the Lord and they're really ready to do amazing things, who are we to temper that and
Yeah.
settle that down because we don't want to run at that pace, you know? So just like I am glad to see Shiro kind of step up and prove himself worthy to where he got the respect of his team.
Right.
I want to be the Sanders to the generations behind me. The guys who say, no, this is our leader and we're going to salute him, even if he's young, even if he's really excitable, even if being around him or her is a little exhausting.
Right.
This is the next generation. And if God has raised them to do a mighty thing as an older generation, it's my job to support them and to help them fulfill the calling God's put on their life.
Yes. Every bit of that. 100%. I'm in agreement with you. That's a talking point. If you guys listen to Geek Devotions, there have been several. I'm not sure why. It's just been something on Celestina's mind. We've had several episodes over the last 3 months about that similar topic. About, look, generations need help. We need to step in and encourage these young people. And the same way, back and forth, we need to be encouraged by the younger generation. And I say it that way because, you and I are getting on the older side of things.
Right.
But for reals, I mean, that's the aspect of it all, is that we got to go back and forth. There are things that the younger generation can teach us, and there's something that they need to learn from us. And it takes humility and grace on both sides of the wall. And so I loved it, man. That was a great maintenance report, brother. Got me hyped.
Good deal.
Awesome. I want to share mine real quick.
Yeah.
And looking at Shiro, what made him special in the eyes of Terry was the fact that he put everything aside to help out, to help take care of things. At the same time, what made him special to Anya was that he didn't kill her. But
that's a great first step, guys. When you're on a date, don't kill her. She's 100% more likely to like you.
Yeah, 100% more. Dating, this is how Branson won Mandy over. And so but no, but like, it was a matter of, like, he went out of his way to take care of her, to patch her up, to handle things. He went out of his way to help Terry. And there was this aspect of, again, he's top dog, top cheese. In the situation with Terry, he easily could have been like, hey, subordinates, get out there and help that guy. But he said, no, I'm going to get out there and do it. I'm going to care for this man. And this whole aspect of servanthood leadership is a big ordeal. You look at the story of Jesus washing the feet of the disciples, which you find in John chapter 13. Jesus takes this position of washing the feet of the disciples. Now, on the surface, us here in 2024, for the most part, most people are like, that's gross. I don't want to touch people's feet. Majority of people are that way, right? I have scars on my feet. I'm very sensitive about my feet because of surgeries that I've had. And so I have a thing. I like, no. But what's taking place here is Jesus is getting on the floor and washing the feet of the disciples. This was a position. This was a customary thing you had where you had somebody wash the feet of your guests when they came in, and it was normally the task of your lowest servant, the lowest of the low. Sometimes the one who's being punished even had to take on this task of washing the feet of the guest who came in. And this is not a time frame where people like, they had tennis shoes and boots and stuff. They're walking barefoot if they don't have some sort of, like, sandal, some bare sandal on. And, they're walking through dirt, mud, camel poop, all of it,
Yeah.
So, and then you have this person get on their knees and wash their feet. And that's what Jesus did. He got up, he wraps a towel around his waist, and he sits down and he washes the feet of every one of these men that have walked with him. And he cares for them. And this is the whole thing of Jesus did that as an example for us that we should do the same. Not that we need to wash people's feet. Don't wash my feet. Get away from me. Okay. I know that's a thing for some people, but and I appreciate when there's certain times where people do that, but if we're really leaders, we need to serve. If we're really going to be the people that we claim to be, we need to serve people, period. And that's just an aspect of life. And some people are like, well, if you're serving, that means you're less than. Yes, but Christ says that the last shall be first.
Amen.
The greatest people serve. If you are a person in leadership and you're not serving people, and let me be clear, serving people does not mean you stand up and you make big speeches and you smile and you wave. No, that's not leadership. And that's not serving. Serving means you're looking out for people. You're taking care of them. You're doing what you can to handle what needs to be handled. And without cameras, without somebody taking your picture and posting it up. I'm going to brag on the policy that we have at my church. We do a lot of stuff at my church. And I would say probably 80% of what we do, most of the church doesn't know what we do. Most of the community doesn't know about the people we've taken care of, the situations we've stepped in and handled, because that's not the point. The point is the people. And I will say this, I'm going to have grace for people who are out there, because when you see the cameras and you see it on people and people are like, oh, they're just doing it for the cameras. But do you know how many times they did it without cameras? Before we stop to judge and go, oh, they're just doing it for the camera. Have you wondered how many times they did it without the camera there? Without the presence there? Now, on the flip side of that thing, with the thing with Anya, there's another past thing that Jesus teaches us, which is to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And people are like, well, Lord, who's my neighbor? And he gives the story of the Good Samaritan. And in that story, again, you have to understand the culture. Samaritans and Jews don't mix.
Right.
They went out of their way to avoid each other. You don't help, you don't talk, you don't do anything. And in the story of the Good Samaritan, a Jewish man is down and nobody else is helping him. His own people aren't helping him. And a Samaritan comes, picks him up, takes him to a place, cares for him, pays for his needs, and says, if there's any more, I'll come back and pay the debt myself. But take care of this man, and then leaves. Our neighbors don't look like us sometimes. Sometimes our neighbors are the people who we're angry with. Sometimes our neighbors are the people who have done us wrong, have been terrible individuals towards us. We're still meant to love them and care for them. Doesn't mean, again, if somebody has hurt you severely, it doesn't mean that they're going to be your best friend and you wrap your arms around them. If somebody's hurt you, they've hurt you, and that's not okay. And that needs to be handled appropriately. And it's okay to have some distance there. Perfectly okay. But it doesn't mean we devalue people.
Right.
And if they've devalued you and you turn around and do the same, you're no better than them. It's the hard truth. I am stating as somebody who has been hurt by many people, devalued me in some major ways. But if I look at them the same way, I'm no better than them. And that's not right either.
Right.
And so I serve them. I serve people. There are people in my life that have done some stupid things. And I've gone on my way to serve them because I know that's what Christ wants me to do. And because I've done that, it's brought healing, it's brought growth, and it's changed some things. So for you guys listening, I want to encourage you. It's hard sometimes serving. Sometimes it means doing stuff that's dirty. It's gross. And this is where I want to wrap back into what you brought in, Branson, about the conversation about like nobody looked down upon you. Timothy probably had people looking down upon him and they did him dirty. But Paul's example was, his words to him was, be the example in these things. Be the example. Be different. But Dallas, it's hard, and it's why is it everyone else gets these things and I don't? I don't know. We live in a fallen world, but I do know that God takes care of his people, and he rewards them. He cares for them. If not here, then in glory. And if we're faithful to him, the Bible doesn't say be faithful to him until it hurts. Doesn't say to be faithful to him until it's inconvenient. So be faithful. Right. It sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
But I mean, Jesus, it really sucked for Jesus that one time whenever he died on the cross. Now I know that's a weird Jesus juke and people are like, oh, come on, Dallas. But think about it. Like Jesus was in the garden and he's so stressed out that he's sweating blood. Like that's a medical condition that's taking place in his body. He is sweating blood because he's nervous and he's stressed out. But he says, Lord, not my will, but yours. I will die on this cross for these people who spit on me, who will yell at me, who will beat me, who will take a a whip and literally rip the muscle and the bone from my body, I will do it.
Mm-hmm.
And he does. So that's my maintenance report. I got heavier than I expected to.
Pass the plate. We just had church.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, if you have maintenance reports, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know. Drop it in the Discord. If something from this episode inspired you, and maybe our maintenance reports has inspired you to create a maintenance report from the maintenance report. Love to hear it. Do communicate with us though. Reach out to us. We love to talk with you guys in the Discord and all the stuff. And again, some of the stuff we may actually mention here live on the show when we record. Speaking of the show, things may look a little different over the next several episodes. Branson and I are in the background working on some stuff. So that's a thing. Branson, anything else we need to say or do?
Make sure to pay attention to all the other stuff. I have an episode of Spider Fan that at the time of this recording will be coming out soon. Tomorrow, yeah. Where I have a rebuttal against a recent bottom shelf episode where they reviewed Amazing Spider-Man 77. So I've got that coming out. But to say that, I also want to plug the bottom shelf. So go and listen to their episode first so that you'll know what the heck I'm talking about when my episode comes out.
Right.
But I do want to piggyback off of what Dallas said about, mentioning things when y'all hear things. One of the things we love to read in the Discord is I stumbled across y'all's podcast because the algorithm suggested it, or because, someone shared it on my page or something like that. And I'm here. That really excites us because that means that we're reaching people and we love interacting with people. So, don't be shy. I mean, especially if you're a Gundam veteran, because, my position in this podcast is I'm the newbie. So I want all the things, all the fan theories and the opinions and the perspectives. Let me hear it all.
Yeah.
So we can geek out about it.
And I want to add, while I'm the quote unquote veteran, I don't know everything, and I happily admit it. I would love to learn more. So drop it in and let us know what's going on, guys. Because again, that's important. Because again, this is community, guys. That's what this is all about. It's not just Branson and Dallas ranting and talking about things. It's community. That's why Geek Devotions exists.
Amen.
All right. I think that's it.
Alrighty.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, stay devoted.
Peace and love.